you before that Cass Sunstein is the most dangerous man in America. And even congressmen and senators look at me like I'm a madman, and I hope I'm wrong. But he is the head of the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs at the White House. If you are watching in the Capitol, please, please listen to the remaining half hour of this program. Because I don't think you have done your homework. I have. And if you know history, you don't repeat it. If you don't know history, you do repeat it. And this history you do not want to repeat. Has this ever happened before? Yes. Woodrow Wilson. Sunstein is taking a page right from Wilson's playbook. And by the end of this episode, you are going to know why you do not want to even look at that playbook. The idea is simple. That the governing elite knows best. That's why they have all these czars and everything else, because they know best. They don't need to go to Congress. They don't need to listen to the people, because the people are uninformed and incapable of choosing what's best for them in society or for society on the whole. They just don't know. It's very complex. True public opinion is denied. Have you checked the polls on Arizona? They're doing it anyway. Have you checked the polls on healthcare? They did it anyway. Have you checked the polls on any of it that they're doing anyway? True public opinion is denied. Alternate realities are created and presented then as truth. We call it propaganda. That's why nothing rings true anymore. Voices of opposition are discredited, intimidated, bribed, or eliminated. Check old episodes of what we told you about all of the policies that Cass Sunstein has outlaid, where he says discredit these voices, eliminate these voices, infiltrate these voices. Progressives also look to use war or the moral equivalent of war, an economic crisis, a human rights issue, to push through their progressive agenda, which always includes the suspension of basic rights. You can never waste a good crisis, and the ends justify the means. That is Woodrow Wilson, and that is Saul Alinsky. They also view the Constitution as an organic document, outdated in its original form. It's open to modern interpretation. Wilson, I think, hated it. All right, so let's concentrate here. I hate this SOB. And the more you learn about this guy, the more you will too. This is the most evil guy I think we've ever had in office. 1916, Woodrow Wilson won re-election in part, large part, due to a commitment to keep America from entering World War I. One of his campaign slogans boasted, "He kept us out of war." There was a very strong anti-war sentiment in America at the time. Americans, if Americans favored a side, they would have gone with the Germans, because Germans were the largest ethnic group in America at the time. Most people weren't paying attention. The Germans were. Okay, so on the eve of asking Congress to declare war on Germany, remember, he ran, "I'm not going to get us into war." It was about a month later. In fact, I got to give you the exact date here, because this is amazing. 1916, he was running for election. 1917, his inaugural address, March 4th, 1917, he said, "We're going to pursue peace, and even though we've been injured by the effects of war, we're not going into war." That was March 4th, 1917. April 13th, 1917, America goes to war, and he's got Frank Cobb. Frank Cobb, he's the editor of the New York World newspaper at the time, close friend and confidant of Wilson. He says these words, "We couldn't fight Germany and maintain the ideals of government that all thinking men shared." He said, Wilson, "We'll try it, but it'll be too much for us. Conformity would be the only virtue, and every man who refused to conform would have to pay a penalty." He thought the Constitution would not survive it, and that free speech and right of assembly would go. But he knew better than everybody else. See, Wilson needed to change public opinion. And change public opinion he did. I'll show that to you next. we need to do a history lesson here real quick, and I want you to take notes if you can, because this is stuff you never learned in school. The problem, the emergency in 1917 was war. The progressives at the time wanted war because they thought that a bloody, awful war would crush all of the imperfections of the past, and there would be and I'm quoting, a collective salvation for the people of Europe and the whole world. Isn't that nice? Wilson also saw an opportunity in war. Never waste an emergency. He campaigned against war, and then he was sworn in for his second term. A month later, we were at war. But he had to reverse the idea of the American people. They didn't want war. So he created, on April 13th, 1917, Woodrow Wilson, evil man, created the Committee on Public Information. He appointed this guy, George Krill. He was a journalist, as the chairman of the Committee on Public Information. Journalist, you better listen to this history lesson because you didn't learn it. As Krill points out in his book, How We Advertised America, he said, back of the firing line, back of armies and navies, back of the great supply depot, another struggle waged with the same intensity and almost equal intensity and almost equal significance attaching to its victories and its defeats. It was the fight for the minds of men, for the conquest of their convictions, and the battle line ran through every home in the country. Got it? The country was at war, but there was another war going on, grabbing the minds of the American people. On censorship, he wrote, censorship of the press, he said, with the nation in arms, the need was not so much to keep the press from doing the hurtful things as to get them to do the helpful things. It wasn't servants we wanted, it was associates. Go back and look at what the president is saying now. He wants associates, he wants partners, and don't you treat Fox like a real institution. You're not like them. Krill was assisted by two close advisors to Wilson. These guys, woo-wee! America, you need to learn about them. Did I just sound like that Cajun chef? Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays. And Walter Lippmann. Every journalist in America. You want to know why journalism doesn't get it? You know why journalism isn't on top of it? Because they have read Walter Lippmann. This guy is almost as evil, if not more evil, than this guy. This guy is taught in every journalism class all throughout America as a good guy, a hero. Bernays is called the father of spin. From his book called Propaganda, he writes, and I quote, if we understand the mechanisms of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without knowing it. These are journalists. In his memoirs, he wrote that he was shocked to discover that Nazi PR genius Joseph Goebbels actually kept copies of his writings in his own personal library. Yeah, Goebbels, where's the picture? Here it is. Goebbels, in his library, had his theories, therefore helping to engineer the rise of the Third Reich. He said, quote, Goebbels was using my book, Crystallizing Public Opinion, as a basis for his destructive campaign against the Jews of Germany. This shocked me. Why? Big government, it doesn't matter. You can use it for your socialist or your progressive goals, or you can use it to exterminate people. When you've set it all up, it just depends on who's running it, doesn't it? Of the CPI's war effort, Bernays writes in Propaganda, quote, it was, of course, the astounding success of propaganda during the war that opened the eyes of the intelligent few in all departments of life to the possibilities of regimenting the public mind. It was only natural after the war ended that intelligent persons should ask themselves whether it was not possible to apply a similar technique to the problems of peace.